Hi, everyone. I am Whit Baird. I'm a customer success manager here at Quali. So today I'm going to be talking to you about our protocols module and just giving a basic overview of the module and some of the functionality that is there. It's meant to be a little more introductory so that you are aware of the features that we have within our protocols module. Um, in Quali. I know we had a little more advanced session earlier this week on configuration, which Victor Kinzer led. Victor's also on the call today. He'll be helping me out as well as I go through this module. So I'm just gonna, I just have this presentation up for visual purposes. I'm just gonna focus my time in the actual system itself to show you what you can do in Quali protocols. So let me escape. And I will go to our protocols module, and I am logged in as a basic researcher or faculty member at an institution. They have a pretty basic interface within Quali, but what this person would do is they would just have the ability to submit new protocols in the system. And the one thing to note is our protocol system is combined. We have IRB, IACUC, and we just came out with IBC. So the experience between the three modules is very similar because they are all on the same platform. But there are different forms and configuration options that are available between the three modules. So I'm going to be showing and walking through an IRB protocol today. Apologies to any IACUC folks that are out there, any IBC folks. But what you will be seeing is very applicable to the IRB things that you'll be seeing are very applicable to IACUC or IBC. And, through an implementation, you can certainly tailor the forms and processes for your specific institution or your specific business. So I'm here as a researcher, and I can see all of my existing protocols that are here. So I had a number of IRB protocols that I previously submitted here that I can view, that I have access to. There's some approved and in progress ones that are here. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and select this new protocol button. Since I am a researcher, I do have the ability to select both IRB and IACUC protocols. One thing to note, this is a demo environment, so some things can change from time to time. It says animals and humans. Typically, our system as delivered would have IRB and IACUC listed here as opposed to animals and humans. So I'm going to go ahead and choose humans because I'm going to do an IRB protocol. And I'm taken to the form that I need to fill out and walk through. So the first part of this form just asks some basic questions, and depending on how familiar you are with our protocols module or our COI module, these forms that we have are very configurable for your institution. So what you're going to see here on these forms are not necessarily what you would implement. This is actually based on a smaller school, so there's not going to be as many questions. Typically there would be a very exhaustive IRB form. This is actually going to be much smaller as we walk through it. So definitely keep that in mind as you look at this, that your specific processes, questions, requirements can all be put into these forms and be configured appropriately. So this is really just an example of what you can do in our protocols module. So I'm going to go ahead and select a principal investigator. I'm actually going to select myself, the person that I'm logged in as the PI. I'm just going to put in a lead unit, and these items are directly entered from your person and unit tables that you have for your institutions that are often managed through an HR feed. I'm going to go ahead and put in a study title with demo for quality days. I have a question here on is this a student-led project? Depending on what I select, it'll ask additional questions about students. So that's one thing to note about our product and these forms, is that depending on the answers that you select, additional questions will pop up. The goal, is to really get a researcher through the form as fast as possible. So we don't want to ask any unnecessary questions. So, for instance, I'm going to go ahead and select no, this is not a student-led project, because I don't want the researcher to have to worry about these student-specific questions that would be on the form. Also to note, there's a preliminary review type that is listed here. It's listed as exempt. Again, this is something you can configure to have. Typically an institution will have the researcher select what they think the review type would be, or the administrator would make that determination for them. But based on the answers to the question so far, there's a preliminary review type of exempt, but that can change depending on the answers that someone inputs into the questionnaire. I'm going to go ahead and select next, and that'll take me to my general questionnaire. And again, a lot of these questions will drive further things down on the form and in terms of how the form will behave. So for instance, if I go here and answer on these first two questions that the project doesn't involve human subjects and I'm not conducting research, it'll actually go ahead and tell me that this is a not human subjects research form and only give you specific questions related to non-human subjects research. I'm going to actually select yes to these questions, just so I can go through a protocol, through a full protocol and a full cycle. I want to make sure, I put a decent amount of data in here and then bring this protocol to full board review so you can see kind of that entire process. So I'm going to answer some of these questions. And again, some of these may not be applicable to your institution or your IRB process. So we can update these forms appropriately. I'm just going to select existing data collection. I'm going to say that the research does not involve prisoners. Identifiable through direct interaction. I'm going to say yes. There's a clinical trial determination that you can answer over this. And there's kind of a hover over that gives you some more information about the question, what each of these things mean. That's just a help feature that we have that is also configurable within our forms. So I'm just gonna check one of these, and maybe I'll just say no, it's not a clinical trial. So at that point, I'm done with the general questionnaire. You can see, based on the questions that I answered, it actually says that the protocol is most likely going to be expedited or full board, and is no longer saying that it's exempt. Going to go ahead and click next, and you're kind of taken to the full form that we have here. Once you do that, so this piece that you already filled out is up above, and now it takes me to be able to put in input in my personnel. So it automatically moves my PI in here that I previously selected. And the one thing to note, if I come in here, you know, it configures the system is configurable to make sure the PI automatically has full access or read only. And then also it automatically pulls in training records that you have in your system. So if, for instance, you have an integration with City, or if you directly input your training data into Koali, you can have that display here. So for this one, you can see that this person has their ethics training has actually expired. I'm going to go ahead and put in a field of the date of human subjects completion. I'm just going to put in today's date. And if you need to add a certificate, you can add that here as well. And then you can put in as many people for your study that you need to. I'm going to go ahead and put in a co-investigator. Let me just put in a home unit and say that that person is a co-investigator. I automatically, or that co-investigator automatically gets read-only access because that's the way I have it configured, configured in the background. You can see this person has no training courses on file. And I also need to enter a date of human subjects training completion here. So that's the personnel section. Again, you can fill out as many personnel as you need for your specific study. There's a question on, is the co-investigator, or is there a co-investigator who is not employed by the university? So this section up here is, you know, allows you to enter in people that come in via your HR feed, but maybe you need to enter in additional people to the study that are not employed by the university. So by clicking yes, it gives you an additional question for non-university personnel. I'm going to go ahead and just click no and bypass that for the time being. So because I said I was doing research, we actually have the ability to connect with your Koali sponsored program system here on this question here. So what I can do is here to find my award, I can go out to my Koali sponsored program system and find my award. So I'm just going to find an active award. And I'm just going to pull up a record and put that into here. And you can see that now I have my my protocol connected to my specific award, and it displays information about that award. You can link out to that award. You can also link, you know, if you wanted to link proposals, you could link those. You could link those here as well. So that's how you would attach to a funding source in sponsored programs if you were also using sponsored programs. Once these are connected, this protocol would also appear in sponsored programs as well. So there's a linking back and forth there. All right, so now I'm going to go and answer a few more questions. So the project start date, I'm going to go ahead and agree that it'll be done upon IRB approval. I can put in an anticipated ending date. So I'm going to put something, I'm just going to put 3 years out. Indicate where we expected the investigation to occur. So I'm just going to say main campus. And I'm just going to say I'm not relying on an external IRB at this time. But if you did want to, if you did utilize external IRBs, we do have functionality in there to connect to the external IRBs and to note that on the protocol. And then I'm going to say that the university will, or I'm going to say no other performance sites are included in this study, just to give kind of a basic example. So I'm done with that protocols detail description. Now it gives me a research description section. So gives me some questions about the research that I'm conducting. I'm just going to put in some basic demo data here. Just because I've never done a human subject study and I don't want to anticipate what kind of things they would put in here. So different questions in here about what kind of research you're conducting. Then there's a section here on subjects and data. So, you know, are you using existing data? If yes, what's the type of data that I have? Question on the minimum number of subjects. Are you studying, collecting, or recording data from anyone 90 years old? I'm just going to say no. Describe the expected duration of the total study. You can describe the study population. Will demographic data be collected? If you select yes, it'll ask you for more income or more information. And if you're going to record any health information. So now it takes me to a risk and benefits section, where you can relay any, you know, obviously you can type out any specific risk or benefits related to the study that can be reviewed by the IRB office. So I'm just gonna put in some basic information into the form so it's all filled out. There's a section on information storage. So will it be done via electronic or hard copy? And then there's an additional question around electronic data security as well. Next, we have specific attachments that we need to upload. You know, you might have specific attachment types that need to be attached to the study. So this is where that would be done. So I can go ahead and go here and be able to add something here. So I'm just going to add something from and it has a specific attachment type. The attachment types are certainly configurable for your institution. So I'm just going to call it data collection. Give it a type of data collection sheet and click done. So you can see you can add as many attachments as you need to for this. And make sure that those are all included with the application. There is a certification statement. So in this case, I'm the PI and I want to certify that the above statements are correct and that I'm certifying this protocol. We do have a process around where you can have an administrator fill out the protocol for you. And what would happen in that case is we would have the ability to have that administrator fill out the form, and then they would notify the PI to actually submit. So you would actually have the PI, attesting to the protocol and submitting themselves. Since I'm in here as the investigator itself, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and submit it myself, so that it will get submitted for review. There's also, if you want to be able to print this at any point in time, you can do that, and get a nice print version of the whole form. Also, if you decide you don't want to actually submit this, you have the ability to abandon it. And also, if an administrator adds any notes or files, you can see those here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this protocol now that I'm done. So I didn't have any, I went through the form and filled everything out, and I didn't have any specific, I filled out all the required fields, so it didn't prompt me to enter anything else because of that. But normally, if you are going through the protocol and you have it set up to have certain required fields, it won't let you actually do that submit until you fill out those required fields. The other thing to note is, now that it's submitted, you still have the ability to withdraw the protocol as well. So, as the investigator, I've submitted it, and it's now going to go to an IRB reviewer for kind of their pre-review of the protocol. I guess I'll stop and see if there are any questions. I haven't been checking the chat, so I'll take a look there. It looks like there's a question we already answered. Anyone else have any additional questions? All right. Well, in that case, I'll keep going. So I'm going to log out as the investigator and log back in as one of our IRB admins. And make sure I'm in protocols. And when I first go into protocols as an administrator, you can see there's a lot more here because I am logged in as the administrator. I think there's a question that just came through, with interest in the administrative section. So this part of the demo should hopefully answer that in terms of what an admin can see versus the researcher. You can see there's a lot more here. There are configuration screens available here. There's the ability to do meetings and agendas. There's the ability to organize your committee. So there's a lot of other pieces in here that you can do as an administrator. But at this point in time, I'm going to focus on kind of the review process and what you do in the review process. So under this manage protocol screen, you can see now that I have, the protocol that I submitted as Audrey Martin is now here, and it's been submitted. It's been submitted for review, and that is currently available for the administrator to go in and start their review. The other thing about this page is it's completely configurable by the administrator so that they can organize their work. So you could click on this advanced filter, click add rules. Maybe I only want to see everything with a status of submitted for review. Their status. And you can save that. You can save that filter, and we can say that one's submitted for review. So now I can go in here, and I have a specific filter to be able to see as an administrator the submitted for review. So at this point in time, I'm going to go into my protocol and start that review process. So typically, an institution would initially, have someone in an IRB office that would be, triaging and reviewing your protocols. So that person would get this and kind of do their initial review. So you can see on the protocol, they have a number of different things that they can do now. So the protocol itself, all the information that we previously filled out as the PI, that stuff is not editable. But we do have the ability to do action items, and the action items really help us facilitate all of the back and forth about what needs to change about a protocol throughout the review process. So it facilitates the exchange of information between the IRB administrators, the reviewers that you might have, or committee members, as well as the researcher that filled out this protocol. So for instance, you can create an action item. On my student projects, you can say, are sure they're. This is obviously a really simple example, but I can say, I can put an action item on that and just plug in, click this researchers button and click post. And that'll be an action item that's visible to the researcher that they can act upon. So you can do a multitude of action items for any of the questions that are here. Maybe you want to put an action item. And I'm going to add an action item here as well. You can also do a general action item. So say you just have some general notes about the form in its entirety. You can click this general action item and say, and I can make that visible to the researcher as well, and I can post that. So now I have a general action item that needs to take place as well. A couple of things to note as I'm going through this initial review process. You have the ability to look at a summary of all your action items that you've placed so far. So you can see all 3 that I've done. If you want to add any notes or files and attach those to the protocol, you can do that through this function here. The general action items we just talked about. Approve. Once you go through the review process, you would have the ability to approve. Same thing, if you determined it was not human subjects research, you would have the ability to designate it that way. You have the ability to disapprove a protocol, also withdraw it. Then you also have the ability to either return to a researcher or require revisions. The kind of difference, the difference between the two is the require revisions gives the researcher specific things that they need to revise, where the return to researchers, typically you're just sending it back to do a whole adjustment of the protocol itself. We also have the ability to do specific reviews and assign it to specific meetings. But I'm gonna skip that for now, and then I can also close or print this protocol itself. So right now I'm actually I want to kind of show some of the back and forth process for action items. So I've done, I'm an administrator and I've done kind of my pre-review, but some changes need to be made before I actually, bring my protocol to be reviewed by committee members. So I want to click this require revisions. And you can also, the one thing about the require revisions versus return to researcher, the require revisions, you can actually put a date that they're due by as well. And that can help trigger some notifications that we have configured in the system to make sure that they do those on time. So I went ahead and sent that to the researcher. So I'm going to go back and sign back in as my researcher so you can see kind of how that action item process happens. So you can see that this was sent back, and there's a revisions in progress status. So I can now go back into this and make appropriate changes to my action items. So you can see it gives you specific spots where those action items do take place. So I can go look on general information, look at my action item, and I can actually reply to the specific action items that are here. And I'm just going to quickly reply to these and just say, a few things here. And then maybe I want to, I have the general action item that I need to take a look at the protocol in its entirety. Maybe there's a couple of questions that I need to change. So I go through and I make all the updates that I need to do. And I can reply and just say that updates have been made. And I can post that, and the admin will be able to see those responses to those action items. So I've done my, I've done my changes. I can now resubmit that protocol. And I want to log back in as my IRB administrator. And let me see here. Looks like my protocol is not here. That's because my filter is showing all my submitted for review. I want to look for things that have been resubmitted. So my protocol is now in a resubmitted state. So there's my protocol. And I'm going to open that back up. So maybe I need to, I can look at all of my action items, and let me actually go to the action item summary. I can look at all my action items and see that Audrey Martin has made appropriate changes. And you can actually go into the action items themselves, take a look at what has been done, and if you feel that it's been resolved, you can remove those so that you no longer have that action item there and available. The other thing to note is you do have this compare versions button. So you can use that to be able to see any changes that are made on the protocol itself since it was last submitted. So you can see I made a change here, and then I think I made a change down here. So you can see exactly what has been changed from version 1 to version 2 with this V2 tag here as well. So maybe I want to, at this point in time, I feel like the protocol is complete and I need to, assign it for review. So how you assign things for review is under review assignments. I'm actually going to do a couple more action items first for my reviewers so that they can note, take a look during review process. And I can assign that action item specifically to reviewers for this protocol. But I'm now going to go to this review assignments. And this is how you make your determinations for review for this specific protocol. So you have a number of different review types that you can select. So you can select if it's, full board, it needs to go to committee. You can select if it's going to be exempt or expedited. If you choose full board, it'll show up, as an agenda item on your committee meeting for, to be voted on, whereas exempt and expedited would just show up as, information only on your agenda. There are also options for not human subject research or if it has external reliance. For this case, I'm just going to choose full board. I want to type in what the committee is. So if there are multiple committees, that you have, I want to make sure I select the right one. We have an admin reviewer function. So if you have multiple IRB admins and you need to assign it to a specific one that is working on it, you can use that admin reviewer to note that. That's typically something that a larger school that has a number of administrators reviewing protocols will use, but our smaller customers, you actually don't need to have something assigned there. So I'm going to leave that blank for now. I'm also going to assign this to a meeting as well, because I know I need to have this done in a meeting. I'm going to do the March 3rd meeting, even though that's coming up pretty fast. I'm just going to go ahead and make this process a little quicker than it normally would be. I'm going to give a review deadline, maybe a couple days before the meeting of March 1st. And then I can also add or assign my specific reviewers. So typically you can come here, you can select your reviewers. I can put, Allison as the primary reviewer and maybe Karina as a secondary reviewer. I'm actually going to, I'm actually just because I only have the time to go through one review, I'm just gonna do the one primary reviewer for Allison. So I'm gonna go ahead and assign her. And I'm going to go in and show you what that reviewer's process would be to review the protocol prior to the meeting. And hopefully I have the right. So now I'm logged in as a reviewer, and I should have this this protocol in my queue as being assigned to me. So there you go. There's my protocol that I submitted for Allison to review. So I'll have the opportunity here to go into that protocol and submit that specific review that I have. So similarly, then, you know, the admin has a specific, the reviewer has the ability to leave action items as well. So the reviewer can come in here, take a look at the different pieces of the protocol and say that they have specific action items that they want to take a look at. So the reviewer automatically sends these action items, and they automatically go to the administrators to review. Another thing that you can have for reviewers and that you can configure in the system are review checklists. So I'm in here as a reviewer. Maybe you have specific checklists and processes that you have for your reviewers and things that you want to make sure your reviewer checks. You can configure specific specific checklists in the system so that your reviewer goes through your process in full. So I can go in here and go through this checklist really quick. Have some questions, what type of review it is. It asks you some questions. Are you actually on the study? Because they want to make, because you want to make sure that your reviewers are not necessarily involved in the study. So I'm going to quickly go through this, and there's a lot of things here. I'm going to put in demo data for everything. I'm going to say that the researcher addressed the IRB's concerns. There's no new issues. I'm going to say that risks to subjects are minimized. Yes. Let's say no here. I'm going to say that the selection of subjects is equitable. Say no. And I'm just going to answer NA to these last couple. So quite a few items that we have here on our checklist. So I'm just going to, again, quickly move through these. Here's a guidance, some guidance that we have set up here for the researcher. And you can say, what your as the reviewer, what your recommendation is specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and click approval with modifications. I'll just do approval with modifications and do approval period of 1 year. And at this point, I should be able to mark that my checklist is complete. I can go back to the protocol and, I've left action items. I've gone through my checklist. I can now click to submit my review for the protocol. You can see that when you do submit your review, it does show what action items you did put there. So I'm gonna submit this for review, or I'm gonna submit the review, sorry. And now when I click the back button, my review has been completed. So I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go back in as the administrator in help, or I'm gonna go as the IRB admin and start the process of setting up my meeting for that would review this protocol itself. So I'm going to go back into this protocol and I'm going to take a look at my action item summary and see which ones that I have and which ones the reviewer did. So it looks like Allison Cates wanted to, take a look at a certain question in the meeting itself. So I'm going to X out of here and I'm going to look for that one. And as the administrator, I'm taking a look at all the action items that are here, and I want to go ahead and add this one to the meeting itself so that we can take a look at this one in the meeting that's coming up for this. So after I've done everything and reviewed the action items, at this point, I would want to at this point, I would want to go and set up the meeting itself. So I assign this, let me just make sure. I assign this to the March 3rd meeting. And so I'm going to click cancel. And I'm going to go to my meetings and agenda section, which will be available for the admins. And I'm going to look for mine. There's a lot that are in here. So I'm going to look for my March 3rd, 2021 meeting. And you can see that that has been scheduled. You can see that there are a couple protocols that are on here and on the agenda for this. So it looks like there was an exempt protocol that that we published to the agenda previously for this meeting. So that just appears here for protocols for information only. There's also a section for protocols for review. So this is our full board protocol that we've been working on through this demo. So that's here as a specific agenda item. If there were any reportable events, those would appear on this section. You can also add sections to your agenda as well. So I can add a specific section and then put in whatever I want for that agenda. So additional items to talk about. You can save that and you can, you can move things around to different parts of the agenda. So I can move the additional items to talk about to start at the beginning of the agenda, perhaps. So once my agenda is all set, what I can do is publish the agenda so that committee members have access to that agenda. You can always, if you wanted to update the agenda, you can unpublish it and publish it again. So that's why that unpublish button is here. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and start the meeting and kind of show you what happens within the meeting itself. So I'm going to click start meeting. Gives you a warning. Once you start it cannot be undone. So you want to go ahead and click proceed. So once that happens is, once that happens, it leaves the or it opens up the attendance for the committee. So the first thing you'll want to do is take attendance for the committee for this specific meeting. So you can say if they're present or absent. So I'm just going to say this person's absent and everyone else is present. And you can walk through each item on your agenda. If you want to keep any notes on anything, you can do that. So for this additional items to talk about, I can add an additional notes. Can click save. And then you can go directly to the protocol to take a look. You could potentially, show this screen live in the meeting, and you can actually go into the protocol itself. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to go to the voting functionality here. And you can see, that there are, you would want to type in what your motion would be. So I can put in, the motion, say it's approved with contingencies. I have this option here to select a specific vote for everyone. If everyone has the same answer, and I can also change the answers depending on how the vote went. Also, if they're absence or they abstained or they recuse themselves, you can note that here as well. So you can go ahead and take your votes, and then at the end of the meeting, you would just go ahead and select your end meeting to go ahead and end the meeting. You can still make some updates to your notes, but then once you've made all those updates and changed everything, you would then submit the minutes, and then that would give everyone access to those minutes for that meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and submit my minutes, and then you can always view a summary of your minutes. It shows you exactly when it was held, who was there, what any of the notes are, and various items that were discussed. So we only got a couple more minutes. So the final thing that I'm going to do is go back to my protocol and finish it up and get that approved. So I'm going to go back to my manage protocol screen. Look for my protocol. I can now resolve any action items that I have. Typically you would want to try to resolve all of your action items. So I think there's a few that I left outstanding. So I'm just going to mark that as resolved. And typically, typically there might be an approval that was done in the meeting that said, as I did approval with contingencies. So even after the meeting has been conducted, you could still send this back utilizing action items. You could send this back to the researcher as well, so that they could make any updates that the committee wanted them to specifically make. But I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and approve this protocol. You can see it gives you a warning item here that there are action items that have not been resolved. I'm just going to go ahead and approve anyway. And when you approve, it allows you to set the continuing review date. So I'm just going to do a year from now, as well as an expiration date. And those will obviously drive drive certain notifications in terms of when you need to submit a renewal. I'm just going to put this out in the future and click approve. All right, and now I have an approved protocol. Obviously, that's not the that's not the end of it when it comes to protocols. You have the ability to submit amendments, and you can see here these actions here on the right hand side. So you have the ability to submit amendments related to the protocol. You can renew your protocol. If you need to renew and amend your protocol at the same time and not do them in two separate actions, you can do those as well. If you need to do an approval update, as an administrator, I can do that approval update. If, for instance, I got something wrong in terms of this, I can come back and update my dates appropriately. And I can suspend it or close this. Or if I was a researcher, I can request that it was closed. So with that, I only have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I didn't quite get as far as I needed to, and I wasn't able to answer any questions. I apologize. Butch, what kind of questions do we have from the group?
For action type times for admin, does it list all the actions or just the current new unresolved actions for action items?
For action items, it will. So if you were to look at your, let me see if I'm answering this appropriately. The action items, so this action item summary page shows all of the action items that occur on a protocol, but it does note if they've been resolved as well here. So I think that's what the question was alluding to.
Okay, Dalu asked it. Shelley, is there routing functionality in protocols? Have it route for approval before submissions to IRB?
I haven't seen that specifically.
I can
I'll
jump
ask
in
Victor.
Yeah, I can jump in on this one a little bit because we have upcoming functionality that's in development right now for this. The specific use case you brought up about having it route to co-investigators, that we do not have planned. I don't think anyone's brought that use case up, but we do have routing functionality where the ancillary reviews can automatically be assigned when a protocol is submitted based on answers on the form. So if someone says, we're going to be working with recombinant DNA, you could configure that question to automatically assign, to the biosafety ancillary review and so on, just depending on what your groups are. We also have functionality that will notify department chairs and school deans when a protocol is submitted that's upcoming. We'll eventually expand that to include approval, but that's going to be a later iteration on that. So we do have some routing functionality that is probably going to be released in the near future.
Okay. And I do, and in the sake of time, I do have one question that I see that I know I can answer. Is there a way to configure the reviewer dropdown to populate only reviewers tied to the specific committee of the protocol submission? And yes, that's exactly how that review assignment works. When you select the committee on the review assignments, here, it only gives you the review assignment, the people in that specific committee.
Fantastic.
All right.
Anybody have anything else for Whit or Victor? I know we've got a full day today.
Yep. Looks like we're over time. So, I apologize for kind of moving through things really quickly and not being able to see anything, but feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions, or Victor or I are definitely willing to answer any questions that you have regarding protocols.
Okay,
All right.
fantastic. Everybody enjoy Koali Days.
All
Take
right.
care.